All right, hey folks, good morning. We're gonna do some game design this morning for Spell Point Sorcerers and Martial Powers using the Color Mana Spell Point variant rule system. Give me a second here to check my signal and make sure that we're live. I'll do my typical intro stuff here and kick the social medias, and then we'll get to work. So it looks like we're up and kick the social medias, and then let's drop that volume down here. It sounds like I'm sounding pretty good, so let's get that down to a volume where it doesn't get in the way, but I can still hear myself, so I know if my stream goes dead or not, and I can restart the stream. I'm going to do some social media posting here real quick. If you're already familiar with my channel, you'll know to skip ahead like maybe a minute to get past the intros here for us to dive into the actual game development here. I'll be here for a couple hours today. So let's see, pressing buttons. And hey, Francois, good morning. So let me go with my intro here real quick and we'll get started. So hey, folks, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games. I illustrate them and I publish them online. And I've been creating content for, well, I've been a DM since 1987. I've been a freelance illustrator since 1999. And I've been creating content on DMsGuild for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition since I think my first book I published was in 2018. And I've also been a Magic the Gathering enthusiast since like 95, I think. So I've created a series of books that are already on the DMsGuild, the Color Mana Spell Point variant rules that replaces the 8 schools of Magic and the Vancian spell slot system with a color magic system from Magic the Gathering, 5 colors, white, blue, black, red, green. Each spell is devoted to one or more of those colors. When you have a mana pool for your characters, you can, if you want to get into like a hard tech design system, you assign each point in your mana pool to a specific color, just like you would the Magic the Gathering card game. If you want to throw a fireball, you need 3 points of mana, one of which has to be red, and the other 2 can be whatever you want. When you run out of red mana, you can't throw red spells anymore. You have to either take a long rest to get all of your mana back, or a short rest. During a short rest, you don't necessarily get mana back depending on what your character class is as per 5e rules, but every time a character takes a short rest, they can switch what colors are in their mana pool. There's also a light mechanical system where it's just a pool of mana, and just like in the DMG variant rules in 2014, it doesn't matter what color the spells are. As long as you have points, you can cast the spell. 3 points, throw the spell. If you want to keep using spell slots, you can just keep in mind, well, this is a red spell. I'm going to throw my fireball using a 3rd level spell slot like I normally would, but we know it's a red spell, so I'm going to narrate it as a red spell. The deeper into mechanics you get, the more flavor you can actually pull from the idea. Like for example, if you're using hard magic, where you have to have red mana to be able to throw a red spell, but you're playing an Azorius Senate character who only uses white and blue magic, they don't have access to red mana, which means that under normal circumstances, your character would have to build your strategies around only using spells that are white and blue. It's a constraint that you're placing on yourself for the sake of the flavor of the campaign that you're in, Ravnica, where a Boros character would use white and red magic, could throw fireballs, while an Azorius Senate character would be using white and blue magic, would not be. An Orzhov Syndicate character would not be using, would only be using white and black magic, so they wouldn't normally have access to red either. Only 4 of the 10 guilds of Ravnica have access to red mana. So if you want a fireball on your list, you would then research the spell to be white or blue instead of red. But if that is a deeper level of restraint than you want for your campaign, then you just simply have a pool of spell points that you spend. And if you're an Azorius character that's throwing a fireball, you're just describing it using white or blue magic, not worrying about red. So you have those different levels of constraint that you can place on your character. If you're one of those people that think that full casters have way too much power over the other type of characters, then you can constrain them with hard magic, where if you want to throw that fireball, you better have red mana, and when you run out of red mana, you better be asking for a short rest so that you can get some red mana back into your pool to cast it. Ideas like that. So it's a fun system. Been using it for about 7 years, and hell yeah, man. Black, green, urban sewer druid, absolutely. Golgari wins them all, dude. Golgari is awesome. I love Golgari. We're going to, let me fix my screen here real quick just so I can wrap in my summary. But those are the ideas that we're playing with today. So let me get Discord out of the way. I'm on Twitter at Phil Kearney if you're on the X-Twitter platform. You can like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications of when we're live in the future. And mic check, checking again. Yeah, okay, good. Sounds good. Mic check. I want to get that down there. There we go. Okay, cool. So let's see. We're going to be. Oh yeah. Thanks, folks. Like, subscribe, bell icon for notifications when we're live in the future. Here is the playtest document that we're using for the Spell Point Sorcerers that we'll be working in today. And here is the Martial Powers playtest document that we'll be working in today. Martial Powers is for using a mana system for barbarians, monks, fighters, paladins, rangers, and rogues, so that all 13 characters, including artificers, which we have in here already as well. But with the Martial Powers system in place, all 13 character classes from D&D can use the same mana system across all characters. So we already have the multi-classing figured out. It actually works really well. We've been playtesting this. We were playtesting levels 5 and 6 a couple months back. Right now we're doing levels 3 through 10 in a mega dungeon. We're doing that on my Discord. If you're interested, drop into my Discord, say, hey, what's up? And if we have an open seat, we play Monday nights. If you have an open seat, you're welcome to sit down and throw some dice with us. But I think we're going to start today with the Spell Point Sorcerer. You can see all the playlists here and here. The color magic system itself on the DMsGuild is here. Like all the other books that I have on DMsGuild, they're all free previews. So you can see the full, like for example, on the Spell Point, the revised color mana spell list. Click on here and it'll show you what makes a white, blue, black, red, green spell, what damage types are associated with white, blue, black, red, green. And given those two combinations, here is the list of all the spells and which colors they're all naturally devoted to. And again, you can always research a spell to be whatever you want, but just like out of the box, default physics of the D&D universe, these are the colors that they're assigned to. One of the benefits, if you're using a Ravnica campaign or a Strixhaven campaign, one of the neat benefits you can have in your renown is as you gain ranks in renown, you get access to your guild's library so that you can automatically find spells that are the color that you want them to be, like that fireball in the Azorius Senate. You can go to an Azorius Senate data center, and if you have proper clearance, given the level of renown that you have in your character, you can automatically access the archives, and if you are preparing your spells in the archive, you can collect spells of any color that you want. Or you can spend time in researching the spell as downtime in the data center to be able to update your spell scrolls with the color spells that you want. So there's, again, more in-game universe reason for your characters to take downtime. Or we were introducing the Bastion system into the renown that we have for the martial powers down in the backgrounds, and renown piety system that we have for Ravnica, Strixhaven, and Theros. So that's all. But those are all on previous streams. And once these books get published on the DMsGuild, you'll be able to look through them as free previews, just like everything else that I publish. So probably enough intro stuff. Let's play with. Let's take an hour and play with Sorcerer, and then after that, we'll dive back into martial powers and start updating subclasses. So it looks like our table is off alignment here. Let's see if I can get these. Where is my, how do I do margins in this format? Paragraph style, texts, align, center, and font size. They're all 11. There you go. Okay, so the way that this works is this has been rebuilt for the 2024 mechanics already. So this is a 2024 sorcerer using the color mana spell point variant rule system, or just the universal spell point system. Color mana system is take the universal spell point system and strap color mechanics on top of it. You can also do that with an elemental system of air, earth, fire, water, or yeah, and so when you assign, again, with like the red, for example, for fireball, or fire magic for fireball, obviously. The system is a point-to-point ratio. A first level spell costs 1 point. Fifth level spell costs 5 points. A ninth level spell costs 9 points. It's a lot more intuitive. It's easier to do the math. I have 30 points in my pool right now. I have a basic idea of how many first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth level spells, because math is easy. What's the next thought there? Oh yeah, and the ratio of, like, in the 2014 DMG, they offer a spell point option, but that system is weird because it's 2 points for a first level spell and it's 13 points for a ninth level spell, which means, according to that math, a ninth level spell is only 6.5 times more powerful than a first level spell, and that just feels stupid. I sometimes wonder if they made it difficult on purpose so that people wouldn't ask, why aren't we just using spell points all the time? So I actually think they made it difficult on purpose. So, but that's just my conspiracy theory. But yeah, 1-to-1 point ratio works fantastic. I've been using it for 7 years in my own games, and other people that send me messages say that they've been using it and it works great. So I'm really thrilled about that. So the sorcerer, the way that the sorcerer works with spell slots is you have your slots and you have your spell points. And when you spend spell points on a spell, you spend a slot and spell points to boost it with meta magic. When you have all of your spell points combined into one mana pool, then you can combine the mana that you would gain from your slots and the mana that you get from your sorcery points into just one larger pool. Just to go back and revisit real quick here, the color mana, just to show you the difference. Let's just go with where is it? Here's the stack, and let's just go with USP because that's the fastest to look at. Universal spell points. Again, full preview. If you think this stuff is cool, pick it up, and I appreciate you for doing so. But very, very simple mechanics. If you're a full caster, you'll end up with 80 mana at 20th level. If you are a half caster, you'll end up with 40 points at 20th level. If you are a third caster like Arcane Trickster or Eldritch Knight, you end up with 20 points at 20th level. 1-to-1 ratio, up to 4th level spells over here. Up to, well, Wish is a 10th level spell, and you don't get access to it till 19th level, but everything else is just 9th level like usual. And then half casters, 5th level, 17th level, that's when you get access to your 5th level spells. So you can see here a sorcerer is a full caster, and your normal pool would be 80 points. But the sorcerer has the 20 points worth of sorcery points that you would get from level whatever till 20. So it ends up being that your character has 100 points instead. So we recalibrate to reflect how powerful sorcerers are with that added mana. So they start, instead of having 2 points at first level, sorcerer has 3 spells at first level. And then it continues to stack in mana from there. When you cast a spell, say that fireball, and you toss in a point of meta magic on top, like careful casting, so that you can create zones of protection inside the blast of the fireball so your friends don't get hurt. You would spend 3 points on the fireball and then 1 point on the careful casting. That would be a total of 4 points that you would spend. A 5th level character, that's a sorcerer, has 21 mana, as opposed to a 5th level caster normally would have 16. So you've got 5 uses of meta magic, which coincides with the 5 extra points that you have in your mana pool. See, that all tracks. And then it tracks all the way up to 100 mana. So it's a pretty smooth system. It took a little while for us to figure that out, but it curves very gently. And then on top of that, we have sorcery over here. Sorcery is the maximum amount of mana that you can put into meta magic at one time. So at second level, when you have Font of Magic, you can put 1 point. You have 7 mana whenever you cast a spell, and at second level, it's only first level spells, obviously, but you can cast a first level spell, and you can put up to 1 sorcery point, which means you're limited to 1 sorcery point. If you go down here and look at our meta magic list here, and again, this document is in the playtest, is linked down below. 1 mana meta magic, 2 mana meta magic, 3 mana meta magic, 4 mana meta magic. So you can cast up to, some meta magic is up to 4th, which means that you wouldn't be able to even use third 3-point meta magic until 9th level. It has the half casting progression, 1, 5, 9, 13, 17. And then at 20th level, as part of your capstone feature, your meta magic ramps up to 10. So you can do ridiculous shit at 20th level, which is great. But also you can stack meta magic effects. So like Distant Spell is a 1-point meta magic. It doubles the length, it doubles the reach of a spell range. And if it's a touch spell, it expands to 10 feet. If it is Careful Casting is 1 meta magic. Prevent your enemies from being hurt. So at 5th level, you could do a distant spell and you can use Careful Casting. So you could throw that fireball at double the range and prevent your allies from being hurt if you wanted to, if they're inside that blast. It'll be 3 points for the base fireball, and then 2 points for one for each meta magic at that level. Or I could pick a single 2-point meta magic option, like Blinding Spell, for instance. I hit you, and then you're blinded until you make your saving throw, for instance. Let's see. We also have the number of spells learned. You can see here there's no list indicating how many meta magic you can learn at each level, but you do have a stack of spells known that ramp all the way up to 25. Plus you have the bonus spells that you get from your subclass. This is combining both spells and meta magic known. As you can see down here, we have a fat stack of meta magic options. In fact, there's, I believe, 24 meta magic options right now. And you can use meta magic with cantrips. So if you wanted to, you could only focus on casting cantrips and use all of your mana and every prepared spell slot, prepared spell, all of that just to modify your cantrips. So you could just crack off cantrips all day and then just juice them with your mana pool with all the different types of meta magic that are in the game. Or you could have a single spell. Like I like casting Ray of Frost. Oh, that's a cantrip, sorry. A Burning Hands. Let's say you just want to cast Burning Hands. That's the only spell that you want to cast. But then you have 24 slots open to modify Burning Hands, and 1 point for Burning Hands unless you want to ramp it by upcasting it up to 10th level with 10 points. And then you'd still be able to juice it by putting in your meta magic on top of it. So you can create very unique character loops. And if you go into Divine Sorcerer, that has access to I'm currently in Curse of Strahd right now. I'm playing a Selesnya Divine Sorcerer that worships Selune. So Selesnya magic is white and green. So I have Web, Guiding Bolt, Bless, Knock. Let's see. I forget what else I have. I have some other things, but they're all mostly white and green spells. Knock, I think, is a blue spell, so I learned that twice. Knock, of all things, it's come in so handy. It's ridiculous how handy Knock has come in. Yeah, so I rebuilt my mana pool. I made sure all the spells that I have are white or green, and if they're not, I researched them so that they can be, and then since I'm a Divine Sorcerer, I can select spells from the cleric spell list. So I took Guiding Bolt, which is a great spell. It's 46 damage. And when I hit, you gain advantage. The next attack has advantage against them. It's such a powerful spell. So it only costs 1 point to pop it. It sounds OP, but considering all the weapon masteries that martial characters are capable of doing with multiple attacks, with your feats at 4th level, Guiding Bolt actually is pacing pretty well with our ranger right now. So it's a really great option, but it's burning down my mana pool and it's taking away from my healing abilities. So I've got, healing is both a white and green spell. So I can use both colors to cast healing, for instance. So that's been a lot of fun, and it's been great being able to thread in these ideas. We're 5th level right now, about to hit 6th level. So these newer mechanics I get to play test myself. But we've been using these in my homebrew campaign for the last 7 years. We've had paladins, rangers, druids, arcane tricksters, eldritch knights, artificers, a wizard, and a sorcerer. Yeah, so they've all been running through pretty nicely. Let's see. So what we're going to focus on then is we're working on the language for the meta magics. So when I'm what I'm currently mincing over is how to properly unify the, oh yeah, we have all the Sorcerer Origins stuff going on. Wild Magic, Meta Magic. Oh, we have we've actually done all the subclasses. That's a good point. Here is the Martial Power book. I'm all over the place this morning, don't mind me. Let's take this. Let's go. I have all of the classes for color mana actually inside of the Martial Power document. Acid Touch, Acid Spray, Acid Arrow. Yeah. You could take Corrosive Strike or the hold on. It's called Corroding Spell. You deal when you cast a spell that deals damage. You can change the type of damage to either acid or necrotic, both of which are green and black energy types. So going back here and then blip this out of the way, and let's go back up to our definitions here and here. We can look at damage types. Acid is black and green, so that's completely Golgari territory, and necrotic is naturally black. So a corrosive strike, a corroding spell. It would be very natural for a Golgari sorcerer to want to take corroding spell. So every damage type that you're doing is acid and necrotic, and you have a large enough pool that you can abuse that a bit, because you shouldn't be anticipating more than, say, if you're gonna have like 5 or 6 combats per day that are 3 rounds each, you're gonna cap at like 15 combats per round. So by the time you get to 4th level, you can sling acid or necrotic damage every round of combat that you can anticipate with, if you're just like slinging cantrips. By 3rd or 4th level, you should, if you're just using meta magic, you should be able to modify every spell cast the entire day in combat with some sort of a meta magic at 1st level. So it paces pretty well. If you're going to burn out your mana pool, the sorcerer's going to be able to do it because they can ramp stuff with their meta magic pretty easily, even if they're just using cantrips. So let's see. Let's go back down to here. If we go into this document, this is why I'm doing both Martial Powers and Spell Point Sorcerers today together, because if we scroll down past all of that stuff, we get into the variant spellcasters, Artificer spellcasters. These will all be books eventually, so stick with me. Backgrounds, the Ravnica backgrounds, Strixhaven backgrounds, full casting class rebuilds. The Bard we've taken care of with all its subclasses. The Cleric we took care of with its subclasses. The Druid we've taken care of with its subclasses. Sorcerer, here we go. Here's the revised Sorcerer with its subclasses. And yeah, we started meddling around with meta magic over here. Did we I think this one's actually more current. So let's stay in this document. So instead, let's have you look at, this is the document. I want to look at the Martial Powers document. And we're down here on page 128 of the document if you want to read along. Can you meta magical wand? I hadn't considered that. Normally I'd say no, but I would consider it. I wouldn't just make a snap answer, yes, of course. I will simply say I haven't considered that. As a DM, I don't hand out a lot of magic items in a spell point system because you have so many spells that you can sling around. Spell casting characters don't really need things that give. Most of the time I hand out power stones that hold spells in them that you cast as your own, and when you do, you spend your own mana to cast it. It's kind of like adding a spell to your spell list when you're holding the stone, and that you would be able to use meta magic with because you're casting the spell through the stone. Wands, I guess, are kind of the same way, so I tentatively say yes. Yeah, I would tentatively say yes. If you're attuned to the wand, that probably would make sense. Let's see, careful spell when you cast a spell. Let's see, corroding. Blindness. Yeah, this is the proper place to be. This is the right one. This is the most current stuff. So let's see, careful spell. When you cast a spell that affects other creatures that you can see, you can spend 1 mana to choose a number of them up to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1 creature. A chosen creature automatically succeeds on its saving throw against the spell, and it takes no damage. if it would normally take half or on a successful save. We're going to go through all these because there's 3 ways to calibrate things, to scale. You can scale it by charisma modifier, you can scale it by the amount of mana spent, or you can scale it by a flat number. So we're going to be looking through the meta magics to see if there is a common thread through them, since we're modifying them with mana. We can do tricks. What does it take to make a wand in this system? That's tangential, but using the Bastion system, it would be have the plan, half the cash that you need, like an uncommon wand would be able to hold a second or third level spell. So that would be an uncommon magic item, which typically has a cost of 400 gold. So according to the DMG, it would be 200 gold plus 40 days to craft that wand into a thing you can toss. If you're using the Bastion system, it would take a week for a second rank facility that has the empowering ability to then the archive study, for instance. If you have an archive study in your Bastion and it's a second rank Bastion, then you would be able to spend a week to be able to produce that, and you would automatically be able to produce it because the money from the profits of the Bastion's activities of maintaining a lifestyle would automatically pay for the components needed to make the spell, assuming that you pass your die roll. If you pass your die roll, you have to find out what your complication is and resolve that. So using the Bastion system, a week. Using the rules out of the DMG, it would be 40 days. So whatever system you like better. So yeah, we're going to go through every single meta magic and see if we can lock down language on these things. Some of them are pretty binary. You spend the point, you deal the damage. Easy peasy. Distance spell. When you cast a spell that has a range of 5 feet or greater, you can spend 1 sorcery point to double the range of the spell. When you cast a spell that has a range of touch, you can spend 1 sorcery point to make that range of that spell. No, it should be a range of spell of 10 feet. I think that makes more sense. I'm going to rearrange this. Let's do that. Let's make these things bold. Careful spell is good. Corroding spell is good. Distance spell, when you cast a spell that has a range of touch, you can spend 1 sorcery point to make this, the range of the spell 10 feet. When you cast a spell that has a range of 5 feet or greater, you can spend 1 sorcery point to double the range of the spell. Starting at 5th level, you can spend 2 sorcery points to increase the range of a touch spell to 10 feet. I like that. That's easy enough. Empowering spell. When you roll damage for a spell, you can spend 1 sorcery point to re-roll a number of damage dice up to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1. You must use the new roll. Charisma modifier. I like that. Extended spell. When you cast a spell that has a duration of 1 minute or longer, you can spend 1 sorcery point to double its duration to a maximum duration of 24 hours. If the spell requires concentration, you must continue concentrating as usual. And in parentheses, if you're using simplified durations, do not extended spell is redundant. What does that mean? Let's explain what simplified spells are. In the color magic system, study devotion, casting spells of color, spell magic spell list. Oh, okay. You don't actually have it in this document. Let's actually go here, and then let's go to the color mana system to look at simplified durations. Here's the core mechanics for the color mana system. I'm looking forward to updating this book. Once the Eberron adventure is finished, we can start updating this book. Simplified durations. So, simplified durations converts all spells from having either an instantaneous, persistent, or concentration duration. If it's an instantaneous spell, you cast the magic, you pop the effect, it's done, it's over, there's nothing else. There's no dispel that can happen at this point. The magic's already over. A persistent spell is something that can be sustained and it stays active for 24 hours. Or when you finish a long rest, basically. And you cast the spell and the magic persists for that 24-hour block of time. Like, for example, water breathing. The way that we calibrate persistent spells is if the spell's duration in the PHB is like an hour or longer, it's a contender for being persistent. Water breathing is a good example of this. Cast water breathing, and it using the persistent spell effect, you spend 3 points of mana, and like up to 10 of your friends can breathe water, and that persistent spell effect, it now lasts for 24 hours. You can take a long rest, and when you finish your long rest, if you want to continue having water breathing active on your character, you just simply leave those 3 points of mana that you had used to cast the spell. You just don't recover them. So however many spells you're able to cast that are persistent, as long as you burn them out, they stay in effect. For you necromancers out there that are animating dead and concerned about your skeletons breaking free at the end of the duration and potentially going out and killing people, as long as you keep your mana pool tied up, those undead will remain faithful to you and under your command. This is a way for you to lean into the trope of having the necromancer with a vast army that they accumulate as they go from graveyard to graveyard, because every time you raise another body, you're just basically adding it to the stack of mana that you leave burned when you finish your long rest to continue to have your legion of dead surrounding you. So it helps reinforce that game trope that players want to have. And if you're using mob or the mass combat mechanics that we have, then actually maneuvering all of those, using that mob of undead in combat is as easy as riding a horse, like literally as easy as riding a horse, because when you use mob mechanics, you're basically converting your mob into a single swarm entity that your character is riding along inside of with your movement speed along with them, and you're using your action economy to make attacks through your legions that can do higher attack bonuses and damage capability because you have multiple things attacking, which is hinted at in the DMG with the mob rules that they have that we've done a very deep dive into for the mass combat mechanics that you can see active in the Spelljammer system that we have linked down below if you want to see squadron combat to see how that system works. So, and then concentration is normally a concentration spell has like a duration of 1 minute, requires concentration. With this system, there is no end point, but if you lose concentration, the spell is gone. So I could turn haste on for 3 points of mana, and it will stay on all day if I can retain my concentration. And that's where attrition tests come in. You shit test. Your DM, if your characters are maintaining concentration on spells to roll from one encounter to the next, so that they're conserving points, you have to shit test them. It's your job to shit test them. And shit testing is attrition checks. Concentration rules. Multi-spell concentration. You can maintain. So the shit testing that you do is just to explain how to use its concentration checks. A haste spell is a 3rd level spell. So your concentration DC becomes 13. 10 plus the amount of mana that you currently have tapped to maintain concentration on your spell. So 3rd level spell, 13 mana. DC of 13. If you take damage, we already know that the DC for damaging spells is half the damage dealt or your concentration DC. Normally in D&D, it's just a flat 10. But because we let you keep haste on all day, if you can sustain it, the DC becomes 13. And it's not just damage that can take it away. Anytime you make a saving throw, strength, dex, con, int, whiz, charisma, any saving throw, if you can't hit a 13 on your saving throw, whether you pass a saving throw or not, if you can't hit that 13, you lose the spell. So suddenly all 6 of your stats become important as a spellcaster. The nice thing about this, that sounds like a disadvantage. It is. It's taking away, it's balancing against the fact that you can maintain that spell all day long. But even more so, the amount of levels of spells that you can have tapped to maintain concentration on at the same time equals your max spell level. So a 5th level character that has a 3rd level spell limit, like haste, can have up to 3 mana. It could be haste, but it could also be 3 first level spells. So like Lawn Strider, Zephyr Strike, and say Blur. If you had all 3 of those spells as first level spells on your list, you could maintain all 3 of them at the same time. And again, the DC to maintain concentration on those spells is 13. So if you fail a saving throw, or if you take damage to Constitution saving throw, and if you can't hit the 13, then you lose all 3 of those spells, which balances against the fact that you can cast spells over and over and over again with the spell point pool. What's the problem with the spell point pool? Spammable effects. What's the counteraction to that? Shit testing you. If you don't want your characters to have a 5th level spell active all day long, they're going to have to hit a DC 15. What's a good good recommendation for the DM is during every combat encounter and during every exploration encounter, you're having a saving throw. In combat, having 1 physical and 1 mental saving throw clipping through every round, one way or the other, like your artillerists are throwing oil at your allies. And when you get hit, you're going to make a dexterity saving throw for half damage. Well, if that dexterity saving throw can't hit the DC 13, your wizard took damage from the oil, but also just dumped all their mana. You now have to ramp your mana back up to get your spells back. That is a big equalizer in the D&D game mechanics. It works incredibly well. It's super cool watching a 19th level druid throwing multiple polymorphs onto their team to get combat buffs, but then trying to figure out how to stay out of the line of fire so that she doesn't have to worry about sporting a DC 20. a DC 20 saving throw on everything. Their tactics then become prevent the caster from being targeted by stuff. What do we need to do tactically so that we aren't immediately going to have our spells nuked from us? That then becomes a level of complexity and tactical combat that a lot of people have an itch for. So the system really leans into that idea. So having said all of that, metamagics, if you add a metamagic onto it, metamagics do not add to your spell point, to your maximum spell. Only the spell level you cast increases your concentration DC. It doesn't, the metamagic doesn't affect your concentration. Hey, what's up, Steve? Yeah. That's what I do. Saturday, it's my Saturday morning brunch stream. I put in work from 9-something till noon. So I still got about 2 hours left. So that's how concentration works. So if you're using the simplified spell system, the simplified durations, you don't need extended spell because it's either instantaneous or it's going to already last 24 hours and you can just leave your mana tap permanently just to keep the spell rolling forever. And then concentration, again, as long as you can maintain concentration, the spell doesn't end. So there are no set durations for concentration spells anymore. So you don't need extended spell. It becomes irrelevant. Hence us saying if you're using simplified durations, extended spells is redundant because you don't need to spend points to keep the spell up because it's already up. Anyway, Bob's your uncle. Impeding spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage, creatures affected reduce their movement by half until the start of your next turn. I want to modify that. When you cast a spell that deals damage, a number of creatures here, where is it? Here. Thank you, Timely Timer. It is a number of This is the block of language that I want. Impede. When you cast a spell that deals damage, a number. Choose a number of creatures up to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1 creature. These creatures reduce their movement speed by half until the start of your next turn. And if everything goes well, I should be able to copy. And then lifelink. When you cast a spell that deals damage, you can gain 1d6 temporary hit points for each additional point of mana you spent this way up to your maximum sorcery limit. Let's see. When you cast a spell that deals damage, you can gain 1d6 temporary hit points. I need to word that differently. I want to, let's see, how do I want to word that? Let's pick up this meta language here and drop that down there. When you cast a spell that deals damage, you can gain a number of temporary hit points equal to how do I want to word that? When you cast a spell that deals damage, you can gain. Let's take it out of it. What I want to do is gain. Let's see, 1d6 THP equal to the amount of the total meta magic points spent. When you cast a spell, you deal damage. You can gain temporary hit points equal to the. You can, what is it? Roll a number of 1d6. Roll a number of d6 equal to the points spent on life link up to your max sorcery limit. Let's actually let's go look at what is the language that we used for not this here. Let's go into the Martial Powers document and let's go look at lifelink down here. I think the answer that we're going to have is going to be in here. Life-stealing strike. Your weapon can deal necrotic or radiant damage and add 1 power die per mana spent. In addition, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to the result of the power dice rolled. Any temporary hit points that remain when you start a short or long rest are lost. Copy. And paste. When you cast a spell that deals damage, you can gain a number of temporary hit points equal to cast a spell that deals damage. God, why am I having problems with this word? You can gain a number of temporary hit points. You gain roll a number of d6 equal to the amount of mana spent on meta magic. Mana magic points, mana. Let's see. When you deal damage, when you cast a spell that deals damage, you can expend. You can expend. You can expend. You can add. You gain a number of THP roll a number of d6 equal to the mana spent using this meta magic, using lifelink, using this meta magic option, adding the total rolled as when you deal damage, when you cast a spell, that deals damage, you roll a number of d6. You gain temporary hit points. Roll a number of d6 equal to the mana spent using this meta magic option, adding the total result is added you gain THP equal to the total roll a number of d6 equal to the mana spent using the meta magic option. You gain temporary equal to the you gain temporary hit points equal to the total amount rolled. Any THP that remains when you start a short or long rest are lost. There it is. Whew, that was a tough one. So let's reread it, make sure it reads okay. When you cast a spell that deals damage, you gain temporary hit points. When you damage, roll a number of d6 equal to the mana spent using this meta magic option. You gain temporary hit points equal to the total amount rolled. Any that remain. You know what? The general rule for temporary hit point is that you don't lose them. I think I'm just gonna drop that. The new 5e the 5e24 mentality is temporary hit points stick around forever unless you specifically want to get rid of them. And I think that's useful. There we go. So when you cast a spell that deals damage, roll a number of d6 equal to the mana spent using this meta magic option. Gain temporary hit points equal to the total amount rolled. Hey, that's easy. Temporary hit points is capitalized in 2024. Cool, that worked. Poisoning spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage, you can change the type of, you can change the damage type. You can change the damage type to poison, and creatures affected make a Constitution saving throw or are poisoned. They can make a saving throw at the end of their turn to end the effect. When you cast a spell that deals damage, you can change the damage to either acid or necrotic. That's good. But The problem that we're facing with it is if I throw Fireball and I hit 20 goblins with it and they somehow survive, they're all poisoned. And they all make saving throws at the end of their turn to end the effect. I want to limit that. Let's see. When you cast a spell that deals damage, choose a number of creatures up to your Charisma modifier. These creatures make a Constitution saving throw. There it is. And you can choose a number of creatures up to your Charisma modifier, minimum of 1. These creatures make a Constitution saving throw or are poisoned. They can make a saving throw. This effect. And then we go to let's see, how long do we want that to last? These creatures make a Constitution saving throw or are poisoned for a number of rounds equal to your Charisma modifier. Minimum 1 round. They can make a saving throw at the end of their turns to end the effect. There you go. So we're limiting how many creatures and how long it lasts. And it's consistent with your Charisma. So boosting Charisma is good. There we go. For a number of rounds equal to period. Radiant spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage, you can change the damage type to Radiant. Easy peasy. Subtle spell. When you cast a spell without, you can cast a spell without somatic or verbal components. Also a first level meta magic, easy peasy. Transmuted spell. When you cast a spell that can deal damage, you can change the type to one of the listed: cold, fire, lightning, thunder. The damage type to one of these listed. You can change the damage to either. You can change the damage type to either cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. That's the way to word it. Cool. Hey, what's up? Because it's two, because different damage types have different values. Most creatures aren't resistant to, like, very few creatures are resistant to radiant. But there are more creatures that are resistant to acid and necrotic than there are to radiant. But there's more creatures that are, there's very few creatures. There's very few creatures that are resistant to radiant. There's more that there's more there's less creatures. I'm saying this the wrong way. Virtually no creatures are resistant to radiant, so radiant is its own effect. Very few creatures are resistant to acid or necrotic. So I have those two grouped together as corrosive. There are more creatures that are resistant to fire, lightning, and cold damage than any other type, except for poison, perhaps, which is also its own effect. But there's also the poison kicker. So you can take poison damage. You can be resistant to that, but you could still also be poisoned. So the creature has to be immune to it. So poison its own thing because it has a kicker poison effect. Radiant is its own thing because no one's resistant to that. Few creatures are resistant to acid or necrotic, so we group those two together. And there's a lot of creatures that are resistant to fire, cold, and what was the other one? fire, cold, and lightning damage. Thunder, there's not a lot of creatures that are resistant to it. So we're just adding that one in as an option because there are creatures that are resistant to it. But Thunder's a good default. But these 4 elements generally get grouped together. That's why. These are like the traditional like elemental damage spells. So maybe instead of, like, we could say transmuted spell could be like elemental spell instead. Change what type of elemental damage that you're dealing. But transmuted spell exists inside of the game, so I'm trying to keep the language that's in the game so that it's familiar but different. There is no sonic, it's force. And yes, there is psychic damage. That is correct. But I don't necessarily have to include all damage types if I don't want to. And I believe the Aberrant Sorcerer has a feature that allows them to convert damage into psychic. So I wanted to keep that as a special flavor. But yeah, you're right. Those are damage types as well. Twin Spell. And if you wanted to use this system and you thought that was a meta magic that was worthy, you are welcome to add it. I may end up adding it eventually, but I don't know if I don't think I necessarily have it right now. Let's see. Force Spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage, you can change its type to force, and that's a 2nd level because virtually nothing is resistant to force damage. I may decide to adjust that down to to 1 meta magic, but for now it is 2. And let's see. Do we have psychic? Yeah, we don't have psychic damage in here specifically. I'm pretty sure that's an aberrant class feature. And it could be argued that force should be a 1st level spell. Let me consider that. That's partially why we're here. We're rebalancing things. Let's see. Not a lot of things are 3rd. Yeah, we can afford to put that down to 1st. If Radiant's down there, we can put force down there too. Either that or we push Radiant up to 2nd, and that doesn't quite feel right. What is going on? Keyboard. There. Boop. Cast a spell that deals damage. You can change the damage type to force. Let's go with that for now. Yeah, you know what? Considering the recalibration of 5e24 having so much stuff become force damage, first 1 meta magic actually does make sense for force. You're absolutely right. That does track. I'm still leaving psychic off for the flavor, but I think you're right there. Good call, Francois. Radiant Spell, we resolve that. Twin Spell. Twin Spell could be tricky. Let's take a few moments with it. When you cast a spell that targets only 1 creature and what? Oh, neat. Right on. What? The dealing psychic damage? If you can reference it for me, I'll take a look. When you cast a spell that targets only 1 creature and doesn't have a range of self, you can spend a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level to target a 2nd creature in range with the same spell. 1 sorcery point if the spell is a cantrip. To be eligible, a spell must be incapable of targeting more than 1 creature at the spell's current level. For example, Magic Missile, and Scorching Ray aren't eligible, but Ray of Frost and Chromatic Orb are. Yeah, I'm fine with that. This is hard capping, so we can do twinned at 1st level, but I can only do 1st level spells. 2nd level spells, it'll cost you 2, which means with the meta magic system, you wouldn't be able to twin a 5th level spell until you got to 17th level, which is, I think, pretty fair. Meta magic 2. So yeah, these are good. I am at this point actually happy with these. Honestly, I think these meta magics and reviewing the subclass options is the only thing that we need to resolve to be able to move forward with actually producing this book. So we're actually pretty close to production. Let's finish going through these meta magics, and then we'll switch gear and we'll start getting into the martial characters again. Blinding spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage, choose a number of creatures affected by you up to your charisma modifier. Chosen creatures make a wisdom saving throw or are blinded for a number of rounds equal to your charisma fire, minimum of 1. For a number of rounds equal to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1. They can make a saving throw at the end of each of their turn to end the effect early. End the effect early. To end the effect early. Yeah. Bam, approved. Okay, and convincing spell. When you cast an illusion spell, saving throw. When you cast an illusion spell, saving throws and checks to disbelieve the illusion are rolled at disadvantage. That is a very specific. I'm going to drop that down to first rank because that's just too expensive for a limited use magic item, a limited use magical effect. Why did I only pick that up? I am all for more spells being first ranked. That just gives your characters more options out of the gate to play the kind of character that you want. I am super down for that. Delayed spell. When you cast a spell with a casting time of 1 action, you can maintain concentration to delay completing the spell. You can then use a reaction to finish casting the spell at any time. The spell is lost with no effect if you lose concentration before casting it. And using the concentration system, if it's a 3rd level spell that you're casting, it has a DC of 13 to maintain concentration. If you're just using normal concentration, then you already know what this means. You're holding concentration. That one works. Entangling spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage, let's go up to here. Entangling definitely needs to be 2nd level because entangling spell itself, entanglement as a spell. Hold on, let's double check that. 5e. Let's just go to D&D Beyond. Because I think entangle is a single target effect for 1st level. 1st level spell. In a 20-foot square within range, turns the ground area into difficult terrain. Each creature other than you in the area that when you cast this spell, must succeed on a strength save or have restrained condition until the spell ends. A restrained creature can take an action to make a strength save against the spell save DC. On a success, they can free themselves from the plant. Concentration effect. We're removing the concentration effect from the entangle spell, and we're limiting the number of targets. 2nd level feels right. I'm going to leave. I think I'm going to leave it at 2nd level because that feels right. When you cast a spell that deals damage, choose a number of creatures affected up to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1. A chosen creature must make a dexterity saving throw or are restrained. Where'd it go? Or are restrained for a number of rounds equal to your charisma modifier. they can make an additional. They can make an additional save. I like that. They can make an additional save at the end of their turn. At the end of they can make a saving throw at the end of each of their turns to end this effect early. That is the last piece. They can make a saving throw at the end of each of their turns to end the effect early. This effect early. Period. There we go. Happy with that. Actually, we can probably just afford to keep that there. Explosive spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage within the area of effect, choose a number of creatures affected up to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1. Chosen creature is pushed up to 10 feet away from the effect's point of origin. The creature stops moving if the space it would enter is occupied. I like that one. Heightened spell. When you cast a spell that forces a creature to make a saving throw to resist its effects, choose a number of creatures affected up to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1 creature. A chosen creature has disadvantage on its first saving throw made against this spell. Second, that feels pretty good. Implosive spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage within an area of effect, choose a number of creatures affected up to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1. A chosen creature is pulled up to 10 feet towards the effect's point of origin. The creature stops moving if the space it would enter is occupied. Basically, mass Thorn Whip. Quicken spell. When you cast a spell that has a casting time of 1 action, you can spend 2 sorcery points to change the casting time to 1 bonus action for this casting. That one was easy enough. Terrifying spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage, all creatures affected. Okay, so this is going to be a modifier here. This will be easy. Hey, we're almost done. I think we'll probably do this next Saturday as well. I think by next Saturday we'll be able to lock down all of the language for Spell Point Sorcerers and probably hire an editor to get to work on it, and then we'll potentially spend Saturdays and Thursday nights, for example, doing Spell Point Sorcerer artwork on top of whatever other game design stuff that we're doing. Maybe that might be where we're at. I'm kind of excited about that. Terrifying spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage, choose a number of creatures. These creatures blank. You cast a spell that deals damage. Choose a number of creatures up to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1. These creatures become frightened of you until they can no longer see you or they succeed a wisdom saving throw. These creatures become frightened of you for a number of rounds equal to your charisma modifier until they can no longer see you. They can make a saving throw at the end of the turn. They can make a saving throw at the end of each of their turns to end this effect early. Creatures immune to fear or charm aren't affected, period. Expanded spell. When you cast a spell with an area of effect, double the distance from the origin of the spell. And Meta Magic 4, the below Meta Magic option, maximize damage. When you cast a spell that deals damage, instead of rolling dice to determine the total, the spell deals maximum damage, period. Easy. There we go. And that is a lot of meta magic. How many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yep, 24 meta magics. And we have a total of 25 spells known. So over the course of your character's career, and of course you can swap things out whenever you finish. Whenever you gain a what progression did we decide to go with here? You can swap one prep spells whenever you finish a long rest, and you can swap them all when you gain a level. I think that's the way that learned caster should be personally. Allow you to slowly change them over the course of your adventuring days. And then when you gain a level, you can just incorporate the fact that you have a new spell level. So you can just tack on a bunch of higher level spells and swap out lower level stuff if you want to. So that you're... I hate how they lock the characters in like that for an entire level. What if like you completely change the environment or style of games that you're running and your character's kit is no longer relevant to what's happening? You need to be able to adapt it faster than that. So downtime... Like a week of downtime would allow your character to swap out 7 spells, even if they haven't gained a level, so that when you have your next adventure. So if you're having, like, for example, the Bastion campaign system that we've been developing during the weekday lunchtime, that is Bastions have a turn each week, and whenever you, it's assumed that the Bastion is generating adventure hooks for you each week in an episodic manner. So if your characters are running on an episodic and on that system that you have one adventure per week, when you finish an adventure and you have your next Bastion turn, characters like this could have 7 levels. You could swap, like you choose which adventure that you want to go on for your episodic adventure that's generated by the Bastion, and when you get the information about what that adventure is about, you would have 7 days during that Bastion turn to be able to swap your spells. So at the start of your adventure, you'd be able to swap up to 7 spells that you know with new spells for you to attack the new adventure. That's a way that you can have episodic campaigns conducted that way, so that your characters are tailoring their abilities to align with, or the spells that they have, or the powers that they know as marshals, to align with what the adventure is being described as being. Like if you give them like the teaser trailer on what is this adventure about, then you can take you can have your session 0 for that adventure while you're doing your Bastion turn. Here's your update adventure. Great, let's kit our characters out with these different things. Let's use our Bastion resources to gain these different perks. And now we're ready to go attack that adventure, and let's go do it. And then you come back and then you re-kit your character. So that's the idea. So when we come back, we'll work on this again next weekend. And when we do, we'll play around with the subclasses. So this is in the Martial Powers playtest document. That document is here. Bloop. And this is where we're going to play for the rest of the day. So I'm going to take a hot second here. Drop that down out of the view. Marshals. All right, let's pull this one out. And let's go back to Martial Power playtest document, and I need to refresh my water, so give me a hot second. I'll be right back for me to put some more water in my cup, and we'll continue. See or hear. I don't know what see or hear is. Let's see. Okay, so diving back into the martial power system, this is a half-casting progression system that the barbarian, fighter, monk, paladin, ranger, and rogue can all lean into. It also has mechanics for artificer, and well, artificer infusions no longer exist, so options plus options for artificers and warlocks. Let's see. I need to do some quick screen management in the background here, so I'm going to block view for you guys for a second, and I want to go look at my Discord. The reason I pop my the reason I rearrange my backgrounds like that when I'm looking at Discord is because I might have people on Discord that don't appreciate having their information shared. So I choose to block my screen, but I needed to reference something in the Martial Powers playtest because there was a specific question about one of the abilities, and I have to track that down real quick. I wanted to look at Monk of Long Death, 6th level, all creatures, change to the targeted creatures. So we want to look at the Monk of Long Death. So that's where we're going to start. Blind, or if being chased, or can hear you shouting after them. If that is, I think the language that if the language that they have for frightened is can see or hear you, then I will switch it. But if the language for we can look that up. Hold on, I want to go find the Monk of Long Death real quick. Let's do F Long Death. There we go. CTCE. Okay, we got to update that. And since we're at it, let's go look at, while we're here, let's go look at the fear spell, shall we? And whatever the fear spell does is how we will have it roll. A frightened creature must take the dash action to move away from you. Or be, let's see, frightened. Can't approach, can't be willing. You can't willingly move closer to the source of your fear. Is frightened of you. So that is the frightened of you is the technical language that we want to implement. Frightening spell. Terrifying spell. When you cast a spell, these creatures become frightened of you for a number of rounds equal to your charisma modifier, or until they can no longer see you. Can't willingly move closer to the source of fear. You have disadvantages on ability checks and attack rolls while the source of fear is within line of sight. So they are no longer within line of sight of you. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to strip that out altogether, because it might only last a couple rounds. These creatures become frightened of you for a number of rounds. There you go. That resolves it. That internally resolves it, because there's already language about how frightened works. So they're just frightened of you, period. There you go. Can't approach, disadvantages on shit until it ends. I don't need any other kicker effects. That is sufficient. Thanks for asking. That was useful. That was useful clarification. Hour of repeat. Okay, cool. So now we get to go into legacy stuff. So let's go into classes. And we'll go into legacy stuff because we want to look at the monk. We want to look at the long death. Long death. JKL. Hour of Reaping. Copy. Paste. At 6th level, you gain the ability to unsettle or terrify those around you, for your soul has been touched by shadow of death, blah. When you take this action, you gain the ability to unsettle or terrify those around you as an action. Action, each creature within 30 feet of you that can see you must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be frightened of you until the end of your next turn. Okay, so the question that had come up in Discord was, is this worded properly? And so, as an action, each creature within 30 feet of you that can be seen. So this allows you to. It's a free. It costs you an action to do it, but it doesn't cost any resources other than the action economy. And so the balancing effect for this, plus the area, is that it will both frighten your character, your allies, and your enemies. So you make your allies unable to approach you until the end of their next turn. If we wanted to restrict this so that our allies aren't afraid of us, that's the problem is that we're making our friends afraid of us. And that's kind of a mismatch in the flavor for where Wizards seems to be going with their game system. So I can see why they skipped Long Death from the core mechanics or the core rulebook, but we're reintroducing all of them. So as an action, as a maneuver, which means you can use it as either an action or a bonus action, including both in the same turn if you wanted to. As a maneuver, a number of creatures choose a number of as a maneuver as a first rank maneuver. You gain a unique first rank maneuver you gain a unique first rank maneuver that targets a number of creatures equal to the max rank gained as the max rank of power gained as a monk. As a unique, okay, a maneuver is a magic ability that you can channel. Instead of casting spells, you channel powers. So a maneuver is a power that you can channel as either an action or as a bonus action, and you can do it both in the same round if you want to. It costs a point of mana to do it. The action economy system that we have for martial powers allows you to skip your bonus action to generate a free point of mana that can then be used on a maneuver, a strike, or an exploit. So if you wanted to use your action to trigger Hour of Reaping, you could use your bonus action, or you could choose to not move and use your movement instead to generate a free point of mana that could then fuel Hour of Reaping. So you could make, in 6th level, so like at 6th level, you could like make 2 attacks. You could then, if you haven't moved, use your movement to generate a point of mana that you could then use during your bonus action to trigger a maneuver, in this case, Hour of Reaping, which costs 1 point. So the maneuver gets paid for by your movement to then trigger the effect, and the effect can target a number of creatures equal to the max rank of power gained as a monk, and you gain ranks of power equal to half casting progression. So a 5th level monk would have 2 ranks of power. A 9th level character that has 5 levels in monk and 4 levels in fighter would be able to channel powers as a fighter would gain 1 rank of power, and the monk has 2 ranks of power, but as a multi-class you would have 3 ranks of power total between the 2 classes. So even though you could channel up to 3 mana, the Hour of Reaping is limited to 2nd rank because you've only gained 2 ranks of power as a monk, as 6th level. So having said that, target a number of creatures equal to the max rank of power gained as a monk. Each creature within 30 feet that can see you. Great. So you gain a unique first rank maneuver that targets a number of creatures equal to the max rank of power gained as a monk within 30 feet of you that can see you. Each creature targeted must succeed a wisdom saving throw, or be frightened of you until the end of your next turn. So technically, if you're doing a lot, if you're moving around a lot and you're doing stuff, you could spend a point of mana to pop this. If your action economy allows, you could pop this for free, and it'll affect for 1 turn a number of creatures equal to your max rank of power that are within 30 feet of you. They can't approach you. They're at disadvantages and all their shit. Easy peasy. Mastery of Death. Touch of Death. During combat, when a creature that has dealt damage to you is reduced to 0 hit points while within reach of your weapon attack, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to 1 power die plus your channeling ability modifier minimum of 1. And a power die at 3rd level is a D6, so it progresses from... So at first level, you have a power die of a D6. Power die is the same as a superiority die or a martial arts die or a bardic inspiration die. It does the same thing on all of those. It starts with a D6 at 1st level. At 8th level, 9th level, it progresses to a D8, and at 17th level, it becomes a D10. Some subclasses have like the Battle Master starts with a D8. At 3rd level, it becomes a D8, then a D10. then a D12. A monk uses your martial arts die instead of the power die. So it's a D6 and then a D8 and then a D10 and then a D12. So by the time you get, so it started as a D6 and there you go. So off the cuff, touch of death, until 5th level, it's a D6. Every time, let's see, during combat, when a creature that has dealt damage to you is reduced to 0 hit points while within reach of your weapon attack, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to 1 power die plus your channeling ability modifier, which could either be strength, dexterity, or wisdom for the monk. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Oh, I can see charm. I can see that working for charm as well. Yeah, let's do that. Because convincing works for both illusion and charms. I actually like that effect. Let's do that. That's actually a great idea. Convincing spell and when you cast a charm or illusion, I'm totally down with that. When you cast a charm or illusion spell, saving throws. Saving throws to against the spells. The initial save against the spell and subsequent checks to disbelieve the illusion if it's an illusion spell are rolled with disadvantage. Yeah, I'm good with that. I think that's fun. Good suggestion. Super down with that. Well done. Give you some credit while credit is due. Cheers. Let's see. Touch of death. When a character has deal combat damage to you is reduced. I also need to look at my master list of powers to make sure that they're all in place still. Powering actions, disciplines. Mechanics, visual effects, forced movement, affecting gargantuan-sized creatures, and here's our bits. Cool. Let's see. Let's finish Law and Death since we're on it. First off, let's make sure everything's in place. Is Healer, is that still a feat that's active? Healer's a feat, right? With the martial powers system here, looking back at the top of it, you have that half casting progression. You start off with 1 mana on a short rest, but again, you can use action economy to generate mana. So as long as you're willing to give up tactical options during your round of combat, you have effectively infinite mana, 1 point at a time. And you have 4 prep powers. These prep powers replace the fighter initiate feats, and they replace weapon masteries, because you can learn weapon masteries and feats as prepared powers. So you start with 4 powers, and you can include in them combat masteries. Here's a stack of 40 feats that you could choose, as well as you can have magical damage types. So starting at first level, these are the types of damage that you could choose to do. Like if your weapon would normally do slashing damage, if you've prepared, say, bludgeoning as a damage type, then you could deal like the flat of your blade, for instance. So that's how you would, or you're enchanting it with magic. You could deal cold damage instead. We added, this was Nightmare Warden's suggestion. So word up, Nightmare, that one of the feats that we can acquire, like for example, the Piercer feats or the Crusher's feats. These rely on piercing, slashing, and bludgeoning damage. So the suggestion was, since we're already allowing basic damage type conversion, we should probably allow the ability to flex what type of damage that you're doing. So that way you could combo into the, no matter what type of weapon you're using, if you want to have access to the slasher feat with that weapon, you can use your magic to enchant that weapon to be able to deal that slashing damage. It's a mallet normally. Well, you have a magical extension that makes that mallet more like a battle axe instead. So it deals slashing damage when you hit, thus triggering the slasher feat if you have it. And then at 5th level, you can have like the advanced damage types of Force, Necrotic, Psychic, Radiant, and Thunder. So we want to look at Healer. Yeah, Healer feat still exists. Breath of Life as an exploit, I think that still exists. We've done a lot of revisions on these powers over the past year. And sometimes we have vestigal options on the list that we have to go through to make sure that everything's properly aligned. And when we find a misstep, we have to fix it. Breath of Life. There you go. Exploits modify actions. They aren't actions unto themselves normally, but when you're already taking an action, you pump mana into it to be able to affect it. Like when you make an ability check to stabilize a dying creature, you automatically succeed. And you restore a number of hit points equal to the result of one power die roll. So that's Breath of Life. You have to use like a utilize action with a medicine kit to stabilize somebody. And I think there's a die roll that's normally involved with like an ability check, a DC 10 or something like that. And so this automatically succeeds, and you gain a stack of hit points with it for 1 point of mana. So that still exists. Necrotic damage, that's still a damage type. Yep. Rally as a maneuver, as a first rank maneuver. Rally gives you temporary hit points. You and one ally you can see gain a number of temporary hit points equal to a total of 1 power die rolled for each point of mana spent. Temporary hit points are fantastic game mechanics because they don't actually heal you, but they give you extra buffer amount of hit points. So your character is both simultaneously when you're harmed but you gain temporary hit points. You're both simultaneously closer to death than you normally would be, but girded or fortified from dying because of the temporary hit points. And it's easy to pepper in temporary hit points because they can be dispelled because they're magical effects. Actually, no, that's not true. They can't be dispelled. But you could potentially counter having temporary hit points put on somebody depending on if it's like a magic action or not. So you can prevent that, but you could also prevent healing. So I guess that's not big of a thing. But the big thing is that temporary hit points aren't cumulative. They're replacing. So if I rolled 5 temporary hit points and then I rolled 4 temporary hit points, that 4 is ignored because 5 is still better. As opposed to healing is cumulative. I heal 5 points and then I also heal 4 points. So in both those instances, I'm now up 9 points. The temporary hit points sets a cap on how much of a fortified, like how much of a buffer can you give to your character as opposed to healing. So it can ramp beyond your normal hit points, so you're ultra healed, but at the same time, it hard caps itself, and those caps are inside of the level limits of the system. So the ranks 1, 5, 9, 13, 17, those unto themselves put a cap on how many temporary hit points you can have added onto your character. And that's pretty consistent across the game, whether using this system or the PHB. There's a lot of hard caps on how much temporary hit points can be gained that tend to all balance out. So temporary hit points, the great unifier. You could theoretically run a game where your characters only have 1 hit point, and you have to and your goal is to keep temporary hit points onto the character so that you're using spells and action economy to generate temporary hit points to protect your character against incoming threats, and you again have that cap on how many temporary hit points you can have at any given time. So you could drastically reduce the amount of damage that monsters are dealing, because all they have to do is breach your temporary hit points and your character dies. That is certainly a mode of play. I have not played that yet, but I'm thinking about it because it's neat. I wouldn't like make that a rule or anything in a game, but it'd be a really interesting game mode or like a challenge. Like in a duel, for instance, you could have a duel where you have a stack of temporary hit points put onto you, and as long as you can sustain the temporary hit points, your opponent hasn't defeated you. But as soon as your opponent breaches all of your temporary hit points, then you lose the match. Like that's a great way to have like non-lethal combat, for instance. So rally is good. Life-stealing strike should be second rank. Let's go find it. We looked at this earlier. Yeah, life-stealing strike. Add 1 power die of mana per mana. So like at second rank, 5th level, you can spend 2 mana at once, and you rolling a monk rolls a d8 at this point, but normal characters would roll a d6. So it'd be a 2d6 mana. It'd be 2d6. You spend 2 mana and you get 2d6 temporary hit points. There you go. And these do burn off on short rest because you can generate them for free. The resources, when you can generate stuff for free, like when the cost of the power is low enough that you can generate enough mana to make it for free, you want to reduce the amount of time that they're effective. So these bleed off after a short rest. They aren't permanently on your character. Spellcasters have temporary hit points that are basically permanently on your character until you lose them, because those are spells and they have more restrictions on them to be able to activate them, as opposed to powers are much more loose and fluid and instantaneous effects and just click on. So it's a different tempo, so it has different limitations. Dire Impact, I think that still is first rank. Dire Impact, first rank sustained, and this is similar to like the concentration effects. You can have a number of mana active as sustained powers equal to the max rank of power, and have casting 1, 5, 9, 13, 17 for a total of 5. At 17th level, you can have a total of 5 mana sustaining powers at the same time. And these are all first rank. So like you could have Blind Sense, Aquatic Anatomy, Dire Impact, and say Empower ability, all of those active at the same time. But the difference is that martial power characters don't have to maintain concentration on stuff. But these concentration effects are limited to self only, and are very limited chunks of mechanics. So spell casting tends to be things that you can affect other people with, like detriments or benefits that can affect you or other people. So your concentration is hinging off of maintaining that concentration. Sustained powers in the martial power system are only self buffs. So basically, when you turn these things on, you're giving up other options. You're eating your mana, and if you're sustaining a power through a short rest, you can't get that mana back because you're using that mana to sustain a power. You could drop the power, get your mana back, and then turn it back on again, but that's 6 or a half dozen. It's the same difference. So up to you, however you want to read that. But you can sustain a power. You can't sustain powers through sleep unless you're a ranger with Mark of Prey. They can sustain that through sleep to keep their prey marked from day after day. But these are basically self-buff effects that once you turn them on, they stay on until you're either dispelled or knocked unconscious. So Dire Impact, it does, you can add 1+ your max rank of power to your weapon damage rolls. So Dire Impact, it's a first rank power, but your character gets it for free at 9th level. So you could choose to use your own power budget to pick up Dire Impact at as early as 1st level if you wanted to. But by 9th level, it becomes something that's just automatically added to your list. You still have to spend the mana to activate it. But if you were to gain it here, 9th level, that's 3rd rank. So Dire Impact would do an extra 4 damage every time you hit something if you have that point of mana sustained. So, but it's eating out all of your other options. So in that sense, it stays balanced with each other. Curse of the Fallen Puppet. I took everything from the Blood Hunter. I'm not a fan of the Blood Hunter. I don't like the bleed yourself to gain power sort of idea. And the idea of spending hit points, you can always get, especially in 2024, you get far more hit points back than you ever expend resources on something else. So expending hit points to gain an ability is kind of like a bag of rats. It's poor design because hit points are so easy to get. And so we took all of the concepts from the Blood Hunter and we converted them into powers. So now if you just picked Blood Hunter powers from the power list, you could have a Blood Hunter Barbarian, a Blood Hunter Ranger, a Blood Hunter Rogue, Blood Hunter Paladin. All four of those options make a ton of sense as a Blood Hunter motif, right? Like Rite of Lycanthrope or whatever it is. All those things exist inside lycanthropy. Like this came off of the Blood Hunter, and it becomes just a first rank sustained effect. It gives you all these perks, weapons, heightened senses, advantages on strength saving throws and checks. So yeah, so Curse of the Fallen Puppet is a second rank reaction. So let's go down to our reactions. It's 2 mana to pop it. You can't generate mana for reactions because it's not you don't use reactions during your turn typically. Curse of the Fallen Puppet. As a reaction, when a creature you can see drops to 0 hit points, you can command the creature to move up to half its speed and make a melee attack against a creature you can see. The effect ends immediately after the creature attacks. There you go. That's what Curse of the Fallen Puppet does for the Blood Hunter. But we just made a 2-point reaction. Daunting Presence. Sustain 3. I think that still exists. Let's find it. There it is. While sustaining this power, and again, it costs 3 mana. So if you're 9th level, this ties up all of your... You can't sustain anything else while you're running this until 13th level. Then you can add on 1. So while sustaining this power, attacks targeting you by creatures you can see roll with disadvantage. And when you are the only target of an effect that requires you to make a saving throw, you roll with advantage. In addition, while sustaining this power, you can spend 1 mana and target a creature as a bonus action. While sustaining this power, you can spend 1 mana and target a creature as a unique maneuver. So now, anytime you spin it, you could spin it as an action or a bonus action. I'm happy with that. If the target fails a wisdom saving throw, it is frightened of you while you can see it. The creature can make an additional save at the end. It is frightened of you while it remains within line of sight, period. The creature can make an additional saving throw at the end of its turns to end the frightened condition. Oh yeah, it's considered a maneuver. All powers last 1 minute unless they save out of it sooner. And unless mentioned otherwise, all maneuvers have an effective reach of 30 feet. I think it's 30 feet. Let me double check that. It's either 30 or 60. Let's see. It's in the descriptions. Maneuvers. Targeting. Range of effects. There you go. Martial powers have a range of 60 feet unless the description indicates otherwise. Powers channeled with thrown or ranged weapon attacks can channel powers up to its normal range. If the power has a listed range or area of effect, you only need to see an unobstructed creature or location within that range to target it. There you go. 60-foot reach. Ranged weapons. Channeling strike powers with ranged weapons reduce the power die by 1 die type to a minimum of 1d4. Unless a feature or power specifies otherwise. So if you would normally use a D6, if it's with a ranged weapon, which is like a bow, crossbow, sling, it's a D4 power die instead of a D6. And the Ranger, if you take the ranged weapon attack feature, like fighting style, for like the unique Ranger fighting style, that D4 is you don't have to worry about the D4. It becomes a D6. And the ranged assault sustained power also nullifies that. So it's taxing you a sustained power to be able to utilize it. Down to here, and let's look at ranged assault. There you go. When using a strike power with a ranged weapon, the power die is no longer reduced. Bop. And you can create temporary non-magical ammunition. And we currently have a gun monk that's using pistols, and they're using ranged assault with their pistols. So they're using their martial arts die for their strike powers with the pistol, and they're able to generate, since bullets are non-magical ammunition, they can generate ammunition with the ranged assault power. And you know, it's just heavy crossbow damage, so it's like a D8. So it's not like they're doing ridiculous damage like in 2014. It's actually very reasonable. I've been using crossbow stats for firearms in my Eberron campaign for about a decade now. And depending on who made your wand is going to determine what type of damage. Like you could deal force damage or necrotic damage, or like if it's a silver flame, it'd be radiant damage, or fire damage. You could choose. If it's a Karnath weapon, it's necrotic damage. So it can switch whoever your manufacturer's owned there. And Thrain, they use force damage. So different manufacturers can deal different types of damage with their wand pistols. Daunting Presence, assassinating damage, exploit 4. So when you use assassinating damage, assassinating damage, it costs 4 mana. It's part of when you deal damage. It's an exploit, so it's not its own action. It modifies something that you're doing. So when you deal damage with a weapon attack to a target that has yet to act in combat or is unaware of your attack, you deal maximum damage, including any additional damage dice such as sneak attack, or while channeling a strike power. You can choose to use this after you roll the damage dice. So if you like the damage dice, you don't have to worry about this. But it doesn't crit. It just takes the dice that you would roll, and you have to spend a bunch of points. This is also the maximized damage from the sorcerer. Also costs 4 points, and you can't access it until 13th level. So it curbs with the power spike that you should have at the level that you're operating at. Hey, what's up? Also costs 4 points, and you can't access it until 13th level. Ooh, neat. Upcast, magic missile, wands. You prefer your Colt 45 auto magics. Right on. Let's see. And then Rite of Revival, reaction 4. Good pop in my neck. Rite of Revival. As a reaction to when you would drop to 0 hit points but don't die outright, you remain conscious and roll a number of power dice equal to the mana channeled, which is 4, or at 17th level 5. Gaining a number of hit points equal to the total rolled up to your maximum hit point total. Yeah, this actually heals hit points. It's one of the very rare powers that exists inside of the game that actually heals hit points, and it only triggers when you die. The Breath of Life at first rank exploit. The two exploits. I love that the only way you can heal hit points are exploits that modify things that keep you from dying. So I want to pat myself on the back without hopefully breaking my shoulder, but I'm really happy about that design feature. That's really fun. Okay, so that's all of those. Let's look at Touch of Death. During combat, when a creature that has dealt damage to you is reduced to 0 hit points, you get the power die. Okay, that works. We already know that. We just did Hour of Reaping. We know that work. Mastery of Death. Beginning at 11th level, you use your familiarity with death to escape its grasp. When you would be reduced to 0 hit points, you can burn one. You can expend 1 point of mana. 1 point of mana, no action required, to have a number of hit points equal to the result of a martial arts to heal, to gain a number of hit points equal to the result of a martial arts die instead. You use your familiar death to escape when you would be reduced to 0 hit points. I need to look at that because I feel like we're missing. I feel like we're missing a component. Starting at 17th level, your touch. You use your familiar with death. When you're reduced to 0 hit points, you can expend 1 key. No action required to have 1 hit point instead. When you are reduced to 0 hit points. Holy Hannah. Yeah, there's no cap on that. That's interesting. As long as you have mana, you can keep doing this. I mean, it would eat your mana pool pretty quickly, but I mean, it's only going to be at 11th level. It's only going to, for a monk, it's going to be D10. So you get D10 hit points. So you could potentially die every turn because 10 hit points at 11th level is nothing. You're gonna take at least 10 hit points every hit anyway. So if you're getting trapped in a multi-attack rend, I do want to say in the 2024 book, I think they converted the claw bite routine into a rend attacks. I think that's a universal thing, just rending instead of claws and bites. It's just basically mauling you. And then like you get rended 3 times, and that could be described as the DM pleases. I think that's a universal thing that we're going to see in 2024 DM Monster Manual. And I like that. Like I like that. Like the DM can choose if it's bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. Although that stuff doesn't really mean anything anymore. It's either non-damage or it's damage. It's just flavor text. But I still like the idea of it. Touch along death. Starting at 17th level, your touch can channel the energy of death into a creature. As an action, you touch 1 creature within 5 feet of you, and you burn. You touch 1 as an action. You touch. And you burn 1 to 10 mana. The target must make a Constitution saving throw. And it takes touch 1 creature within reach of your unarmed attack, because you can sustain a power that allows you to have an extended reach, or like a bugbear, for instance. So we want to capitalize on that. So instead of just being within 5 feet, is within reach of your unarmed attack. You can burn. You can expend. You can spend 1 to 10 mana. The target must make a Constitution saving throw, and it takes 2d10 necrotic damage per mana on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. Yep. I think I'm okay with that. Okay, Long Death looks good. Resolved. I am going to go through the process. We're basically sweeping through and resolving all of the abilities. So another character in our party that I need to prioritize right now is it's down, Kearney, is a hunter ranger. So let's go down into the ranger and look at the hunter subclass. What time is it? It's 11:13. How's our timer looking? Perfect. Okay, I've got another 40 minutes. Let's keep it up. The Hunter Ranger was the other subclass that we needed to focus on specifically right now to make sure that's all copacetic. We recently did a sweep through on the Ranger, so I'm really happy with the abilities. For those that aren't familiar with it, again, this for anyone that's tuning in and tagging along. This playtest document that we're looking at right now is right here. Bloop, there you go. And we're hanging out on page 66, looking at Ranger features. So a Ranger can prepare powers, and it's a half caster, so you have spells as well, 1 to 5. And so when you have your prep powers, again, this is covering weapon masteries, fighting styles, feats, the fighting style feats, spells, and powers. You can select any of those things. So you could go all spells, or you could go all feats, or all powers, or weapon masteries, or damage types, or you can blend any of those and you can switch them out daily. Every time you take a long rest, you can switch one. And whenever you gain a level, you can switch them all. Hey, what's up? Headhunter, Pygmy Ranger. Hell yeah, dude. Absolutely. So you get your power die like everyone else, D6, D8, D10 for increasing your power die results. Your max rank of power, it's a half casting progression, 1, 5, 9, 13, 17. The total number of powers that you can prepare is a lot. It goes to 23. But again, that also includes your fighting styles, your weapon masteries, spells, and then you juice it with the powers as well. And then the mana supply, it's on a short rest. We saw when we were looking at the universal spell points over here. I'll just take this back up to the top of the color mana system here. Half casters on a long rest have 40, but using the mana system, we're throttling your ability to, like, martial characters are all, again, using the system, you're either a martial or a full caster. And the hybrid classes of Ranger, Paladin, and Artificer can blend powers and spells together. So if you are a half caster or like a martial character, you're on short rest mana, and it drastically reduces your ability to burst. Instead, you have, again, you can burn action economy to generate free mana, so you can run these low rank powers perpetually as long as you're willing to give up action economy inside of combat. And then outside of combat, you burn mana like you would normally use. Being in combat gives you more action economy per round or per character's turn than what exploration does. Exploration is typically you're just taking your actions in turn, and you generally have like an ability check, like an action and movement is basically all you get. In combat, you have the action, bonus action, movement, and reaction all on a sequential initiative action economy system. So you have a lot more action economy that extends beyond what a normal exploration challenge would be. So when you're inside of initiative with those extra actions, giving up those extra actions generates free mana, so you can perpetually run powers or use your action economy as you normally would. Up to you. A DM can choose to drop into combat during exploration challenge, like maybe you're trying to escape an avalanche that's falling. You could then switch to combat. You could then switch gear into combat encounter in which you're trying to escape the avalanche. And now you have your action, bonus action, movement, and reactions that you can either use to optimize your movements and ability to escape the avalanche, or you can give up that action economy to generate free mana to, ramp up an effect that you would use, like increase your speed, teleport, become immune to damage, phase into the ethereal planes so the avalanche skips you, whatever. You could potentially have that happening, like if it's like a 3-round challenge of escaping the avalanche. Again, you could drop into combat action economy to be able to generate mana, and the DM can choose what kind of a challenge you want to have. So it gives you flexibility. Full casters can't generate mana with action economy because they aren't martials. They are using weird esoteric materials and ritual spells and blah blahs and somatic components and foci, stuff like that to be able to cast these spells. They aren't embodying the use of their mana like martial characters are learning to embody their powers. And the Rangers and the Paladins are hybrids because although they can embody these effects, they can also cast spells. So Rangers are unique in that they can cast, they can use generated mana during their round of combat for instantaneous or concentration spells, because concentration spells can be broken while sustained powers last all day. Being able to use temporary mana generated by movement to be able to sustain an all-day effect that the martial characters can do, that's a flavor conflict and it's mechanically broken. And big shout out again to Nightmare for pointing those things out. So great balancing, but we all decided and agreed that if you have to maintain concentration on a spell, if the ranger can generate mana to activate that spell, it could be taken away the exact next round, or even during that round, like with a countering strike, you're activating the spell and you immediately lose your concentration and the spell is dumped and you gain no benefit from it, or it just cashes out whenever you do. Plus there's the attrition shit tests. So that in that sense is balanced. Further, in combat, you can use your action economy to heal your allies, but you can only do it in 1 mana chunks. So if you wanted to pop a 3rd level Cure Wound spell, like juice your Cure Light Wounds, like Cure Wound spell up to 3rd level, you're only generate, like you could stay still to generate 1 point. You can give up your bonus action to generate another point. That's 2 points of free mana. Now you still have to spend a point from your mana pool to juice it up to 3rd level, and your whole round of combat has only been used to tap somebody with a heal spell that's within reach of you. So, because you can't move to get to them, and you don't have a bonus action to dash or anything to get to them, so they have to actually be at you for you to be able to burn off your action economy to juice up a heal spell. But effectively, a ranger becomes incredibly utilitarian in this system. A lot of people are like, why the hell would I ever want to choose a ranger? Like, it's more of a flavor vibe than statistical advantage to ever choose a ranger as your character option. Well, this is allowing you to, your ranger has a ton of utility and has the flexibility of like being able to lob spells at people for free using action economy where other classes can't. So, but the full casters have so much mana that they can afford to just spam spell usage to burn up your mana pool. These characters spam action economy to burn through mana. Anyway, there you go. So those are the ideas. We replaced Hunter's Mark spell with Mark of Prey. It's just an ability that you can choose anytime you spend an ability. Anytime you use your bonus action, you can mark a target as your prey, and then you have to use another bonus action to select a new target. But while that target is your prey, you gain advantages on tracking them and understanding their intents. Plus, you get a free point of mana every time you hit them to channel a strike power. So you can always deal an extra D6, D8, eventually a D10 damage against the thing that you've marked as your prey. We saw our range. We had a bow ranger on our team last Monday, and she was absolutely cooking. She was using her bonus action consistently every round to be able to switch between targets to be able to juice them with more damage when she was hitting. It was working really well. Her combat round resolved quickly because she knew how she was using her bonus action, but whenever she would hit, she'd get the benefit of being able to ramp her effect. And because she was a ranged attacker, she was only getting 1 attack at 3rd level with her bow. But her bow was if it hit, it was going to do an extra D6. In this case, she was using martial strike, which ramps your damage die. She was dealing an extra D8 every time she hit. So she was doing D6 plus damage and a D8. So she was actually doing pretty damn good snipe damage as a ranger. And her round actually moved. She actually had the fastest round of activity because she was able to burn off her action economy so efficiently. It was actually really cool. Ranger becomes pretty fucking cool. There's also and it gets better. Like at 5th level, you have advantage on your marked prey. At 9th level, Rangers and the Champion are literally the only two are the only two options in the game to increase your crit range. So it's incredibly limited, and again, just makes the Ranger that much more unique from all the other classes. So if you want to go for a crit fisher, you want to go Ranger. And it only works on your marked prey. So you have to burn your bonus action to be able to activate a higher level of crit, which will end up clocking through that target more quickly to then have to use your bonus action again to switch to another target. So it's eating your action economy to have more effectiveness. 9th level, crit. 13th level, your marked prey persists even while you're incapacitated, including when you take a long rest. So once you mark something as your prey, you can continue to hunt them continuously. And you can always, and you always know the direction of them regardless of how far away they are. And then at 17th level, your crit range increases from 18 to 20. So crit fisher. And then you have your fighting styles. The Druidic Warrior fighting style is an expansion of the Druidic Warrior in the player's handbook. You get a level 1 spell from the Druid spell list of your choice, and you get 2 cantrips. And whenever you gain a level, you can switch them. And the Ranger level, the maximum level spell from Druid is equal to your maximum level spell as a Ranger. So at 17th level with the Druidic Warrior, you get a free 5th level spell from the Druid list that you can add as your Ranger. So Druidic Warrior becomes very attractive because you can start, there's a whole bunch of really cool shit that you can get off the Druid list that requires concentration, which is very fragile. So it's a cool gain, but it has its drawbacks, risks and rewards. And then the dual wielding is dual weapon mastery, but our ranged, our bowmaster ranger who's on our team right now, she has the ranged prowess, which is you can, when you use strike powers with a ranged weapon, the power size isn't reduced. 6th level as a ranger, you can attack with ranged weapons while an enemy is within 5 feet of you, no longer causes disadvantage to your attack rolls. And at 10th level, you can make it acts of opportunity with your ranged weapon if the target is within 10 feet of you, as though it were a weapon with a reach property. So at 10th level, rangers can start using their bow to make opportunity attacks against targets that like try to leave range of 10 feet of them. Or there's a number of reactions inside of the power system that lets you trigger opportunity attacks as well, which again, the ranger can trigger within 10 feet with their bow. And then at 20th level, you have a D12 power die against your marked prey. And your marked prey isn't even disrupted if you die. Oh no, it can only be disrupted if you die. Otherwise, it remains intact. So, and then we're looking at conclaves. So Hunter is our priority right now because that's what we have playing with us. So let's go down to the Hunter. Otherwise, it remains intact. So, and then we're looking at conclaves. So Hunter is our priority right now because that's what we have playing with us. So let's go down. Where are you? Oh no, wait, it's up there in the list. I missed it somehow. Where are you? Where are you, dude? It's up there in the list. Beastmaster. Fey Wanderer. Where are you, Gloomstalker. Hunter. Thank you. Okay, bonus powers. When you choose a subclass at level 3 and at the levels listed, you gain bonus powers. The Hunter normally doesn't gain any spells, so you get 10 powers. The Fey Wanderer, the Gloomstalker, for example, gets 5 bonus spells in the PHB, so they get 5 bonus powers to complement them. There you go. But the Hunter normally doesn't get any powers, so we give them 10 bonus powers. Anticipate is a reaction. Let's go take a look at it. Resolving this class is probably going to be the last thing that we do today. Anticipate reaction. As a reaction to when a creature within range of your weapon attack that you can see makes an attack, before they roll to hit, you can make an attack against it. There you go. As a reaction to when a creature within range of your weapon attack that you can see makes an attack, before they roll to hit, you can make an attack against it, which could potentially kill them before they complete their attack. As a kicker effect, which is you spend the 1 point to trigger Anticipate, and then you can spend additional mana. Roll 1 power die per mana spent. Per mana spent as a kicker. And your kicker is limited to your max rank, so at first level, Anticipate is limited to 1 additional mana. Adding the highest result to the attack roll. If the attack misses, you restore the kicker mana to your pool. So you can put up the point as a gamble, and if you hit, you lose the mana. If you miss, you get the mana back. That is a common feature that you see on attack effects. And then Martial Strike is a first rank strike power. Martial Strike is unique. Your weapon damage increases by 1 power die. So at first level, instead of a D6, it's a D8. A Battle Master that normally has a D8 die roll. If you're using a Martial Strike, the power die is now a D10, and it caps at D12. Your weapon damage increases by 1 power die per mana channeled. The power die roll is 1 size larger than your current die up to a D12, and In addition, you can use one combat mastery you have prepared, or that is a property of the weapon you hit with. Normally, weapon in this system, weapon masteries are considered cantrips. So if you hit with a weapon, unless you're granted a bonus, like Tavern Brawler grants you the ability to push somebody, like that's its own thing. If you're using Tavern Brawler with a like say Psionic Strike, then you would deal psychic damage when you hit them. The Brawler feat would push them, and because you're using a strike, you wouldn't be able to use a different mastery. But you could use masteries. Masteries are cantrips, so they're free to use. You just have to know the mastery to use it with whatever weapon you want. So like if you have like the Vex property, those are naturally occurring on, say, a longsword. Longsword has Vex. So if you're proficient with a longsword, using this system, you can automatically use Vex. It's just part of using the weapon if you're proficient with it as a martial character. Full casters, like the Blade Singer, for instance, gains access to gains proficiency in martial weapons, but because they're not a martial character, they can use the weapon, but they'll have to spend a feat to gain the Vex property. While a fighter is proficient with longsword, but also can automatically use the Vex power without having, or the Vex mastery without having to learn it. You could choose to learn it and thus be able to use Vex on literally any weapon that you have, but like Nick, for instance, can only be used with light one-handed weapons. So it has that restraint on it. Restraining, the grappling strike, the grappler mastery that we've incorporated. It's not on any weapon specifically. You have to learn that one, but it has to be a melee weapon attack for you to be able to initiate a grapple with somebody using that weapon. And you can't attack with that weapon again while you're grappling because you're using the weapon itself to grapple. You see this in martial arts a lot. Like you can use a sword blade to like put on an arm lock or like a shoulder lock. You could use a staff, and you can thread the staff between their elbow, shoulder, and leg to restrain them and lock them in place until you pull the staff free from the lock. These are fun things that like Kung Fu and different combat arts teach you to do, it's a really awesome flavor that wasn't really present in D&D in general. That a simple grappling mastery like that allows you to incorporate that to grapple something. So that's the martial strike. Deals more damage than usual, and it doesn't have like all the strikes have their own effect. Like deal exotic damage type, or like lifesteal, gain temporary hit points, or grapple somebody, or blind somebody, or whatever. The martial strike doesn't do anything other than allow you to deal extra damage and apply a mastery at the same time. Vanish, maneuver 1, turn invisible. Let's go take a look at it. Vanish. You become invisible until the beginning of your next turn. There you go. And then Rogue Stance, sustained 1. You become invisible until the beginning of your next turn. There you go. And then Rogue Stance. It's a sustained power, so it takes 1 mana, and it ties up your only sustained power at first level. While this power is sustained, you can use a bonus action to dash, dodge, or disengage. Basically, like the Rogue. Moving target is a reaction 2. So let's go back up to our reactions, and moving target is exploits, maneuvers, reaction. There it is. As a reaction to when a creature you can see moves into or within the reach of your melee weapon, you can make an opportunity attack, even if the target is using the disengage action. Rolling 1 power die per mana channeled, adding the highest result to your attack roll. If the attack misses, restore the mana to your pool. So this is gambling that while they're within your reach, you can potentially you can make an opportunity attack, which can also miss. So that can miss. That allows you to juice the attack, almost guaranteeing that you'll hit to cost you a point. But if you miss, you can try it again because you don't actually lose any mana. So moving target, it costs 2 mana to do it. So it's expensive. per mana channel. It's 2 dice, and then you keep the highest result. So like at first level, you roll a d6. So you'd make your attack roll, and then you'd roll 2d6, and you would keep the best of the 2 die rolls to see if that result is then a hit. If it hits, you lose both mana. If you don't hit, you get both mana back. So it's a high risk reward. Otherwise, 2 mana would be too expensive. But 1 mana is too cheap for the ability to overcome disengage or to be able to attack people while they're moving within reach. So the refund effect takes away the sting of costing 2 mana while still giving you tangible benefits if you succeed. So good reward, high risk. Moving target, and then Saving Grace is reaction 2 as well. Saving Grace, re-roll any d20 test. And then including any number of power dice that you rolled. So if I made the moving target attack and I missed and I really needed to hit that, instead of regaining my 2 mana, I could burn 2 mana and re-roll. So hold on. Let's see. As a reaction to when a creature you can see moves into or within the reach of your melee weapon, you can make an opportunity attack. If it misses, you restore the mana. And because you missed, you can re-roll any test, including any number of power dice rolled. We put up 2 points. We missed. We get our points back. I then use Saving Grace. Oh, no, I can't do that because Saving Grace is its own reaction. I can't react to a reaction, so I can't actually stack these things together. Right. But I can use this as a reaction during my own turn. Re-roll any d20 test. So I can burn my reaction during my turn to re-roll my own die on an attack roll. But if it's a moving target, that itself is a reaction. So I can't use Saving Grace with moving target unless I have there's a sustained power called Opportunist. And while this power is sustained, during your turn, you can sacrifice a number of attacks to gain additional reactions. Oof, ouch. And you're still limited 1 per turn, including your own. So even then, you still wouldn't be able to use Saving Grace to recover the moving target. Still self-reinforcing. I'm happy with that. Redirect, also a second rank reaction. Redirect, as a reaction to when a creature within reach of your melee weapon that you can see hits you or another creature with an attack, you can redirect the attack to target another creature you can see within reach of that attack using the same attack roll. It costs 2 mana to do that. Otherwise, it's kind of like the monk's deflect attack if you reduce the damage to 0. Except that this doesn't have to reduce damage to 0. It just costs you 2 mana to redirect it. There you go. Within reach of your melee weapon that you can see, it's a you or a creature that with an attack, you can redirect the attack to target another creature that you can see that is also within reach of the attack. There you go. You can redirect the attack to target another creature that you can see within reach of your within reach of your melee attacks. Not their reach, your reach, because you're the one that's redirecting it to somebody else that's within range of you. That makes sense. Good find. Like that. Roll with the hit. God damn, this guy's loaded up on reactions. Roll with the hit. As a reaction to taking damage from an attack, you reduce the damage by half. There you go. It's basically rogue ability, but it costs 2 mana to do it. Frenzied attack. 4th rank sustained power. Let's go look at it. Frenzied attacks. While sustaining this power, you gain 1 additional attack when you take the attack action. And you gain advantage on all attacks. This attack can be used to generate temporary mana. So normally, action economy. You can, if you have multiple attacks, you can forego any number of those attacks to generate mana. So at 5th level, a fighter that takes the attack action, you could choose to not take the attack action instead and burn and then gain 2 points of temporary mana. At 5th level, you happen to have 2nd rank powers that cost 2 mana. So if you wanted to sacrifice both of your attacks, you'd gain 2 points of mana that you could then, as a bonus action, use as a maneuver to trigger that effect. And then double strike is a maneuver too. Double strike, and again, maneuvers can be used as actions or as bonus actions, your choice. Double strike is going to be probably what you think it is. Double strike, you can make 2 attacks. So if you spent 2 points as a bonus action, it's basically like Monk's Flurry of Blows, except the monk only has to spend 1 point to do it because you're a monk. Anyone else can do it, but it's going to cost you 2 points because you're not a monk. If you are a monk, you do not need this. A rogue could use a maneuver to make 2 extra attacks, and then use a like as an action, and then you can use your bonus action to gain steady aim to gain advantage. So you'd have advantages on your first attack, and if that misses, your double strike could follow up with the second attack to potentially hit anyway. So you'd have 3 chances to hit during your attack action with your bonus action to be able to get your sneak attack in if you qualify. So let's look at our features. Hunter's Lore. You know if your marked prey has immunities, resistances, or vulnerabilities. Hunter's Lore. During your turn, you can study your marked prey and you can study your marked prey. You know if your marked prey has during your turn. No action required. To determine if it has any immunities, resistances, vulnerabilities, or lethalities. You learn 1. And what 1 is. How to word that? So you'll know, yeah, like for example, this dragon has resistances and immunities. And you can learn 1 of them. There, that's poorly written, but that's why we hire editors. During your turn, you can study your marked prey. Determine if it has any immunities, resistances, vulnerabilities, or lethalities. Each turn you do that. There we go. Each turn you do so, you gain knowledge of an additional one DM's choice. So, for example, red dragon, immune to fire damage. It might have resistance to charm, for instance. So you use this ability. Hey, tell me something about this critter. Well, he's got immunities and resistances, and specifically, he's immune to fire damage. You might go, well, duh. But there's other things there as well. So next turn, you can say, well, what's the other thing that does have other things? Yeah, it's got another thing. It's also resistant to charm. There you go. Yeah, it kind of is, right? Kind of is. Let's see, Hunter's Prey. So that's then you have Hunter's Prey. Choose one of the following feature options. You can choose a different feature when you finish a short or long rest, so you can swap these. And you can choose to prepare either option as a meta power. Meta powers are powers that don't cost mana, like the damage types, the feats, the masteries. Those are like cantrips. They don't cost mana to use them. So those are what we refer to in the system as meta powers. So these become meta powers that you can use. When you can choose. I want to word that differently. You can use one of your prepared powers. You can use your prepared powers to gain the other choice. That's horribly worded, but there it is. Colossal Slayer, when your marked prey is larger size than you, increase your power die by 1 size up to 12. And Horde Breaker, during your turn, when you hit your marked prey with your attack, you can deal a power die of damage to a second target within 5 feet of the first as part of the same attack. You don't have to make a second attack roll. You automatically hit, but it's only going to be a power die of damage. If you're using minion rules or lethalities, that can be really useful. Lethality is a minion rule. Like, for example, if a water elemental might have lethality versus cold damage. So when you deal cold damage to that fire elemental, all you have to do is hit it and deal 1 point of damage and it dies. So if you wanted to make fire elemental minions, you give them a lethality that is narratively appropriate. Or it could just be lethality anything that you hit them with dies. Like if you're 17th level and you're fighting a horde of ogres, and ogres should be pointless at this point. Or you can even do like at 13th level, anything that's a CR2 or lower has lethality anything. So all you gotta do is ding them and they die. So you can start doing horde stuff, or like just decimating things, like tons of stuff. Like your fireball can wipe out 30 goblins automatically, or 30 ogres automatically, because you gave them lethality versus all damage. So that's just a game mechanic that lets you toggle minions on and off by using lethalities. Yeah, so you can use, you can include these options among your prepared powers. I think that wording is okay. And that is a consistent thing that we see at all levels. So I'm going to copy and then there, and then I can get rid of this line. When your marked prey is a larger size than you, deal 1 additional power die. These options enhance your selection of selection of hunters. Enhance your hunters prey options above. Superior. Okay, great. So, and then 15 When you take damage, you can use your reaction to gain resistance against that damage and any other damage of the same type until the end of your current turn. Nice. Okay, so that stands alone. And we just resolved that. So let's look at this. When your marked prey is a larger size than you, deal 1 additional power die of damage. This doesn't count towards your max channel limit. So up here, I'm dealing, when your marked prey is a larger size than you, increase your power die size by 1. And again, with marked prey, whenever you hit your marked prey with an attack, you get a free point of mana to automatically channel a strike. 1 point worth of strike. So, and it would upgrade. So like a D10 would become a D12 or whatever. So you would automatically deal that extra die. And then at 11th level, that die increased and you gain another die on top of it. So it's 2 dice. When your marked prey is a large size, deal 1 additional power die of damage. This doesn't count towards your max channel limit. Normally, you like if you have 11th level would limit you to 3 ranks. So you could have up to 3 mana that you could channel into a strike. The Mark of Prey gives you a free point for free, but you're still limited to 3. This would allow you to push it up to 4 if you wanted to, but the Mark of Prey only does 1, so this automatically gives you 2 as a strike, or you could juice it up to 4. Superior Hordebreaker, when you target your marked prey, the second creature you target can be within 30 feet. Normally it has to be within 5, because the Hordebreaker has to be within 5 feet. But if you're 5 feet of the, within 5 feet of the first as part of the same attack. So they have to be next to each other on the map. But at 11th level, they could be on the other side of you. So like you could be 5 foot here and then 10 feet away on the other side of you also counts. And then this lets the archer play. So if you got ranged attacks, I can hit you. I have 2 arrows, so I can fire them both. One hits you, another one hits another guy that's like 15 feet beyond you. So that's how that language works. And then superior. Okay, so let's look at 7th level defensive tactics. Escape the Horde. The rogue stance power becomes permanent. So if we look up here again, we get the rogue stance at 5th level. It's a first rank sustained power, so it costs you 1 mana to have rogue stance active. But at 7th level, escape the Horde, rogue stance becomes permanent and it doesn't count towards your max channel limit anymore. In addition, you can also choose the hide action. You can also choose to hide as you can also choose to hide. There, I don't need to have the rest of it. And so let's look at rogue stance again. Sustained power. With this power, while this power is sustained, you gain a bonus action to dash, disengage, or dodge. Okay, you can choose to hide as a bonus action instead. Nice. And then multi-attack defense. When you're hit by an attack, that creature has disadvantage on all other attack rolls against you this turn. There you go. And so you can choose to pick up. Both of these. So if you don't choose Escape the Horde, you still have Rogue Stance, but it'll cost you a mana. If you pick up Rogue Stance with Escape the Horde, it's now permanized. When you are hit by an attack, and then you can choose to have multi-attack defense as well. So you could pick this one up for free because you can just gain it and neutralize Rogue Stance, and then you can pay 1 prepared power to pick up multi-attack defense on top of it. And that resolves the Hunter. So I'm going to put a big exclamation point next to them. Equals done. And where are we at on time? We got like technically 5 minutes left. So I think that puts us in the Dunzo space. So I'm going to, I have tomorrow off on a holiday, so I'll be back tomorrow tomorrow's Sunday. I will not be on at all tomorrow because Sunday is my day of rest. And on Monday, it's a holiday for me, so I will have the day off. So I'll be back on streaming artwork for Eberron in the morning, like usual. And then my lunchtime at 1:30 p.m. as usual, I'll be back on. I might decide to play with Martial Powers tomorrow because we have Martial Powers playtesting Monday night, or I might come back and work on Bastion systems some more. I'm not sure which. Then we'll be doing Martial Power playtesting that night. Tuesday I have off. Just took the day off for myself to extend the holiday. In the morning, we'll be doing Eberron art like usual, Monday to Friday. And then lunchtime on Tuesday at 1:30. I'll probably get back into the Bastion system, play with that some more. So that's what we're doing for now. If you guys think this stuff is cool and you're new to the channel, like, subscribe. Be welcome to join my Discord channel to shoot the shit and sharpen your knives with me. Ask me anything. Check out the books down below. If you think they're cool, consider buying them to support more shenanigans like this. And I'll see everybody on Monday. Have a great weekend. Cheers. Yeah, you bet.